All right, the quarterback situation, obviously minus Brad Kaaya. I don't know necessarily that he achieved as much as he wanted to from a team perspective at the University of Miami, but obviously the program's in much better shape 3 years later than it was when Brad Kaaya arrived. We got a situation with Nkosi Perry, Cade Weldon out of Tampa, of course, son of Cade Weldon of Florida State fame. Malik Rosier, obviously on the roster as well, finishing up his sophomore season in 2016. So how does this thing shake out at this point?
Yeah, the replacing Kaaya is going to be a big thing because, like you said, he did not – wins are not a quarterback stat. It's a team sport, and Miami as a program is in a better place than we were when he first got here. But like you said, there was some to be desired from the team achievement result. So, but in any case – you have a quarterback who leaves after 3 years and, 32 yards short of 10,000. That's a lot to replace. I mean, he ran the huddle. You have the intangible leadership thing that goes with playing quarterback, So it's going to be a tough task. And I wrote about it on the site, stateoftheu.com, which you can check out. It's called Replacing Kaaya is the title. And there's like a subtitle in the article. But I wrote that last week. And it's going to be an interesting battle. Both head coach Mark Richt and offensive coordinator Thomas Brown have said that the battle for the starting quarterback for 2017 is going to be wide open. There are no favorites. There is no front runner. It is going to be a bunch of guys who are going to compete, and then the best guy is going to play. So just looking at the contenders, redshirt junior is Malik Rozier from Alabama, 6'1", 212 pounds. Kind of he started that Duke game that I mentioned previously last year. So he won a road start in the ACC already. He has the most experience of any of the contenders. He started one game and has appeared in 11 others in his Miami career. Most of them, obviously, at the end of games where we are either getting blown out or blowing someone out because Brad Kaaya took like 99.6% of snaps over his time here in Miami. But Rozier is a guy who can move around a little bit. He can run. He has, a decent arm and, things like that. So he needs to be very careful with the football. The previous staff, James Coley, our former offensive coordinator, said, if there's no play there, go make a play. Whereas Mark Richt says, if there's no play there, throw it away and live to fight another day. And through the spring and fall, and even, through the season in practice, that change was something that Rozier was going through. So he has the experience level that other players at the position do not. Excuse my iPad for making that noise. It's a thing with him. I think that there's a solid floor there, but maybe a low ceiling. And some people would say high floor, low ceiling for the level of achievement for the team. I think it's a moderate floor. I don't think that he's that great, but stranger things have happened, and player progression is a wonderful thing. So maybe he improves and wins that job. Also, a redshirt junior is a walk-on Vincent Testaverde, son of Vinny Testaverde of Miami Hurricanes and NFL fame. He played one game at Texas Tech in 2014, which he had middling to bad statistics. And is pretty much on the roster because his dad is Vinny Testaverde and is paying his way to Miami. And it's fine. And, like I said, I'm a Hurricane. If, God willing, I have a son or daughter, they're going to go to the University of Miami and follow in dad's footsteps. But, I mean, I'm not going to expect them to get every scholarship and every opportunity that I had just because they have my name. And it's kind of the same thing with Testaverde. I don't see him playing here. I think if he plays with the kind of talent that we have in the quarterback room, a lot of things went terribly wrong if he's the guy who starts. And that's just me. And I know people are going to say I'm a hater and da-da-da. Hey, look, he's just simply not good enough to play here. He was not good enough to play at Texas Tech. He's not good enough to play here. Wonderful guy. Great to have him, at dad's alma mater and everything, raw team fight. But I don't think that he should. No, thank you. Redshirt sophomore is Evan Sheriffs from Jefferson, Georgia, 6'6", about 210 pounds now. Athletic, accurate in high school. He has a stronger arm and a little bit less accuracy now in college. So, but he does have some physical traits that are, projectable. So we'll see what he can do with things. Interestingly, when he's, from Georgia, valedictorian of his graduating class from Jefferson High School. So he had offers from like Columbia, which is where he was going to go, Columbia, New York, Ivy League school, before Miami offered him after signing day, after missing on somebody. I think it was maybe Lamar Jackson, who we tried to get in a last second kind of recruiting thing, who was not the Lamar Jackson he is now as a recruit. So like, miss me with that, outrage. Anyway, bring in Sheriffs. He's here on the roster and he'll be competing. And I think he has a realistic chance. But Mark Richt did not offer him as an in-state quarterback at Georgia when he was at Georgia, from Georgia when he was at Georgia. So, I'm not saying that he holds a grudge or anything, Richt being, but maybe that's something where you've already seen the projection of the connection between a Richt run offense and Evan Sheriffs. Bryant Sheriffs, Evan's brother, started at Connecticut for a while at quarterback as well. So he does have some, pedigree to him, but we'll see what happens. So that's 3 guys in the battle. And then Testaverde, but yeah. Let me see and then there's the 2 freshmen really. So you have Nkosi Perry, 6'4", 184 pounds, and that might be generous on the weight, from Ocala Vanguard High School, 4-star recruit, dual threat kind of kid. He can move around, he can run around, and he has a nice arm. He can run the RPO, the run pass option game. He can run the spread or the read option run game. Can do some quarterback run stuff with him. And his ceiling is definitely the highest out of any of the guys that I'm going to mention. Nkosi Perry, 6A Player of the Year in the state of Florida in 2015. Statistics slid back a little bit this year, but that's because Vanguard was blowing teams out and he wasn't even playing second halves of games. Okay, so his statistics did slide back a little bit on that. And I think he was focusing on developing as a passer more, so he didn't run a lot because he didn't have to. Vanguard is a very good team. I think they went like 11-2 or 10-2 this year. So, they were blowing teams out like 73-3, where, at halftime it's already 49-0, and, he doesn't even come on the field. But Perry is a dynamic player. If the play breaks down, he's going to make something happen. Definitely a strong arm, can improve his accuracy and everything, but he just brings a swag to the position that Miami has not had, and brings that threat of a quarterback run game that clearly Miami did not have with a Brad Kaaya. And, both Mark Richt and Thomas Brown, head coach, play caller, and offensive coordinator, have said that they want to integrate more of a mobile quarterback into the offense. And I think that the prototype for that is Nkosi Perry. He broke records set by Dante Culpepper, whose name you may know, previously Florida High School Player of the Year, Mr. Football, UCF All-American, NFL MVP with with Randy Moss up in the Vikings. Dante Culpepper had records for 20 years until Nkosi Perry came along at Ocala Vanguard. So if you're wondering what kind of talent level we're talking about, that's the kind of level we're talking about. Nkosi Perry will not be an early enrollee. He's not going to get to campus until May. So that might put him behind a little bit in the quarterback battle. But I remind you, Brad Kaaya also graduated in May and came to Miami then, not early as an enrollee in January. So there's a parallel that you could potentially see on that end. 5th and finally, but not the least of the options, is Cade Weldon, like you mentioned, son of Casey Weldon, who played at Florida State when, Mark Richt was the quarterback coach, Heisman Trophy runner-up to Desmond Howard in 1992. Is Casey Weldon. So Cade is his son, a 3-star guy from Tampa Jefferson High School, but I think he's underrated. And the story to that is Weldon, the younger Weldon, tore his ACL and MCL on the first drive of his first game as a junior in high school and missed the rest of his season. The junior year is really when you see recruiting profiles and rankings blow up for the most part. So he didn't play but 12 snaps, if that, in his junior season, and then sat on the sideline. So as other people's profiles are rising in this recruiting class, he's just sitting there and rehabbing and things. But Cade Weldon has good size. He's 6'2", 205. He has a nice arm. Obviously, his dad played, really well in college, Heisman Trophy runner-up, played in the league and everything. So comes from a family with a pedigree of understanding how to play the position of quarterback, been around quarterback his entire life. So, he threw for almost 3,200 yards, 19 touchdowns, ran for another 400 or 500 yards this season in high school. So, he has a little mobility to him. So he brings that element also that, again, the coaches are looking for from the next quarterback. And, he is not – Nkosi Perry is the quarterback number 1 in this class. But Cade Weldon's like 1A. It's not far away. You can say quarterback 2, but, Cade Weldon will be enrolling next week early at the University of Miami. So he'll be here for spring practice, mat drills, all of those things, and that might give him a leg up. And, a lot of people, if you look like on 247 Sports, I think that Cade Weldon is like in the 900s for rankings of players in this class. That's just because there has not been an update since last year. But if you watch the highlights, if you look at him play, every week I did a recap of committed players in this class, what they did in their high school football seasons. You're playing against, elite level competition in Florida. I know it's only 5A football, which is not the largest classification, but still, you're playing great level of competition in the state of Florida. And then against a good team, you have 383 yards, 4 touchdowns, another 120 yards rushing and a touchdown. Hey, man, that's a kid who can play. So, he might not be what other people or what people are thinking of as the next quarterback. And full disclaimer alert, in my Replacing Kaaya piece, I said go with Nkosi Perry because he's the future. Mark Richt, it has been reported by Peter Ariz of CanesInsight.com and others that Nkosi Perry was not just the number 1 quarterback on Miami's board this year. He was the number 1 overall player on their recruiting board. As in, out of anybody in America, Nkosi Perry was their number 1 target because the coaches know what he brings to a team. So I say go with him as the quarterback. But if one of the other options, Malik Rozier, Evan Shirreffs, or Cade Weldon, happens to be a better player for Miami right now, then play them. And I think that, while I think that Rozier, Allison, or I saw Jack Allison, who I forgot from that list, but I think that Rozier, Allison, and Perry are the top 3 contenders as we sit here right now. But it would not surprise me at all if Cade Weldon made a serious run at starting quarterback for Miami in 2017.
Yeah, we know that we can rely on recruiting rankings when we talk about team rankings over the course of time, year after year after year. But individual players, go to any quarterback class, dual threat or pocket, and you're going to see a number of players that were ranked higher than guys that we've grown accustomed to throwing touchdown passes on Saturdays, because it's I don't want to call it a crapshoot. There's talent evaluation that's done very well, but it's difficult to project 2, 3, 4 years in advance and how a kid's going to take to a system and develop. No question about that. I just pulled up 2014 dual threat quarterbacks, Deshaun Kaiser at number 16. So there are not 15 quarterbacks better than Deshaun Kaiser, who obviously showed his wares at Notre Dame in front of him. A lot of guys that I follow this stuff every day that I've not heard of because they just have not played.
No, I was going to say, just backing that point up, and it goes with scheme fit as well, because, sometimes guys go to places where their skill set doesn't really fit. Look at a Torrance Gibson goes to Ohio State. He should be a wide receiver. And he went to wide receiver, gets suspended. Now he's going to go to JUCO and try to play quarterback again. John Franklin III, not a quarterback, but wants to play. Sean White, also with John Franklin at Auburn. He doesn't have the skill set to really play well at Auburn, but as a good recruit, he wanted to go there because he had the cachet to get there as a 3-star, 4-star kind of guy. But I think he might have been better served at other places. So, yeah, quarterback evaluation, there's the scheme fit element as well. But, sometimes you miss.
Yeah, so Malik Rozier, I go back to that Duke game that you mentioned, 20 for 29, 272 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. So a nice showing there, coming off the forgettable drubbing against Clemson where he had to save Brad Kaaya, who was basically carted off the field, 7 of 22, 2 picks, 42 yards. But got to discount that. So he gets the 1 start in college, and he performs pretty well. Only got to throw 4 passes this past season, 2016. And Testaverde, you mentioned the game against Texas when he was in Lubbock with the Red Raiders, 2014 true freshman, 15 of 26 for $116 and a pick against the Longhorns. And again, that was that'll be 3 seasons ago as a true freshman for one Vincent Testaverde. Not Vinny, not with the rocket arm, not with the NFL future.